Hello there guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Now in this tutorial we're going to look at React. We're going to look at React, which is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So in this tutorial we are going to look at what is React, how can you use React, and how can you get started with React. So in this tutorial I'm going to start with what is React, for example. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, just go ahead and click the subscribe button, like this video and share it with your friend, if you're new to this channel, that is. And yeah, so let's get started. Now, what is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. As well, you can also define React as a JavaScript framework, that is a front-end JavaScript framework that you can use to build your UI user interfaces within your front end in your web application. So that is basically what is React, and we're just going to look at the fundamentals. So React deals or React works in three ways, or it has three main importances that you need to know. And the first one you can just see on this slide is that it is declarative. That means that you can design simple views for each state in your application, and React efficiently updates and renders the right components when your data changes. In other words, you can have several views in your application, and then you can update those different components of your application in their own parts. So you don't really need to update one part, but you can do it in several components. Another one is let me see this. Okay, another one is it's also component based. That is, you can build encapsulated components that manage their own state, then compose them to make complex UIs. So basically what we are meaning is that React is a component based. In other words, you can create several components and update those components within themselves. So you can only have them within themselves, and then you can update those components so as to make different user interfaces. For example, look at Facebook. Since React is created by Facebook, you can see in Facebook we have different, for example, we have the whole app, we have the header where we have the Facebook and some header icons and titles and so forth. Then we also have the, for example, when you look at the Facebook status, that is a particular component. As well, when you look at the part that is within the status component, we also have, for example, the buttons that you're able to navigate between different statuses and so forth. So you have to know that all those are different components that consist or that make up Facebook. So whenever a developer comes in to update anything within Facebook, he has to observe which component am I updating, and then he's able to update the component accordingly. Now the other one is learn once, write anywhere. You can develop new features in React without rewriting existing code. As we have said, you can develop several components and then you can update them accordingly within your React application. Okay, so now the next thing, why learn React? Now React is created by Facebook project team in 2013. So in 2021 Stack Overflow survey, React was listed as the #1 web framework, toppling the jQuery from 2020 surveys. Now when you look at this particular diagram here, this is taken from Stack Overflow. You'll notice that in 2021 React was topping with a percentage of 74.5% as the most loved web framework. It is even a loved framework when you compare with other frameworks such as Laravel, which is a backend, as well Django, that is Python, and well other frameworks. So you realize that it was one of the, sorry, let me exit this. It was one of the most loved framework and yeah, you can see here where it is. So that is React, and then you can see there's a partner, Vue.js. So if you know something about Vue.js, it's also similar with React. They do similar things, but then React, it's more popular, and it's good you learn it if you're interested in learning a front-end framework. Now here we are only going to deal with the fundamentals. So we are going to deal with introduction topics, such as, okay, any program we always start is an hello world. So we are going to start with an hello world. We are going to introduce ourselves to JSX, which is a JavaScript syntax within React. So you are going to know it is specifically meant for React. And then we are going to learn how to render elements within React, components and props, state and lifecycle, handling events, conditional rendering, list and keys, forms, composition, verse, inheritance. So all these things you are going to learn them in React. And I'm sure by the end of this you should be able to create an application in React using these fundamentals. And I highly recommend any developer out there or any beginner who is starting in any language, is always good to go and learn the fundamentals, have a solid foundation on them, so that now from there you can move to bigger and advanced topics. Now, how do we install React? So to install React is very simple. So we are just going to run this particular, or you are going to run this particular commands, npx create React app, and then you can give a name to your applications. For example, mine is just demo app, that is demo app. So in my code editor here, that is notepad, sorry, not notepad, but VS Code. So what I've done is I've just ran these commands, and I felt there's no need for us to repeat the same thing. So what you're going to do is very easy. Just open your VS Code or any code editor of your choice, and then what you need to do, you need to have npm node, that is, you need to have npm packet manager installed from node. So within your node.js, you need to, I think that should be, sorry, I think my internet is off, let me just on it. So what you need to do, you need to have a node.js, which is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8. So what you need to have, you need to download node.js, that is, you need to have this downloaded within your computer. You can download it super or specific, but you just need to have it installed, so that when you come to your let me do this. Let me just run this application. So when you type here node, and then you type the version, it should be able to give you, yes, you can see mine is version 14.17.2. so you need to have it installed here, and then you need to check. So it's easy, just go ahead and install it by clicking this, and then you're good to go. Or else, if you have it, then we can just get started. So what you need to do here after that, you need to do what? You need to run this command, and then specify the name of your application. For example, mine is demo app. So once you have done that, it will already give you all these ones. They will also come after you have installed your demo app application React. And then here npm start is the last command that you need to run, so your application can become successful. For example, you can see mine here. So when I run mine, let me just bring this up. So when I run mine, you can see here, okay, this is what you get when you run your application. So you need to have it started, and you are good to go. So that's it with our slide representation. So let's get started. Now when you install React, now you're presented with this. So what we have here is that we'll have the main, remember from the demo, that is create React app and then demo app. So you have this, it comes, and then that's what you can see here. And then now we have the demo app, and then now within the demo app we have all these node modules. Okay, we have the node modules, which any npm, once you install it comes. That is if you have dealt with other applications that use Node.js and or that require Node.js installed. So what else do we have? We have public. Now public, as you can see here, when I click, we have some, for example, the important one I want you to look at is the index.html. Now this one I'm going to explain to you a bit as we continue, but what you need to know that this is the HTML that runs any application that is installed within React. So for example, what we have here is that we have the React app as the title that is going to appear when you run our React app. And then here we have div ID and then route. Now this route is whereby any particular code that you write here to run, that is to any web application that we're making here, it will have to be run within the div ID route, that is root, sorry, and then the rest of the application or the rest of the code will be presented. I will show you in a practical way so that you can get it. Now these are just logos that come, so they are not important. Now the other one important thing you need to know is that you can see this is the logo for React. Another thing you need to know is that we have the source, and then now within the source we have, for example, app.css. App.css is whereby, for example, if I'm having app.js, then app.css will be relevant as they are matching the app and the app. So here, for example, within the index.js, you can see here I'm importing app.css, and as well I'm also importing index.css because it's also there. So by default, once you install, they come created, that is, they are normally created, but you can delete and give any name of your choice. For example, in the app.css you can give maybe style.css or any other term that is relevant to your application. Now here we also have app.test.js. So here we can test our application, but here we are not interested in this because this is not what we are going to look at. So I may as well remove it or just leave it there. Index.css, I've shown you that it is the one that becomes created when you create your application, that it is created defaultly. And then index.js is this one we are going to look at. And then the other ones, they are not as much important. The git.ignore, that is, you can ignore some git files that you maybe want to upload and all that. So basically I'm going to be dealing with index.js because we are just going to look at fundamentals. So I will not do much of let's say, for example, I'm creating an application to do something and so forth. What I'm focusing here is I want you to understand the fundamentals from the ground, so that when you're making any application or you are watching another tutorial maybe somewhere, you are able to understand if the person is making an application. Okay, where are we rendering elements? Where are we using conditional rendering? Where are we using JSX syntax? And why is it important to use it in React? So you're able to understand all those things if you have the right foundation or the fundamentals. So let's get started. So the first example I want us to look at is basically the hello world example. So that's the first thing that any program out there would start. So I believe we can start from there. So inside index.js we can have a simple example like this. For example, let's say let's start by rendering elements. For example, something like can have something like react DOM dot render, and then here what we are having is can have the h1 tags, and then I just have something like hello world. Let me separate this, so like that, and then here I can have something like document dot get element by ID. You can see it there, and then the root, like that. And then here, since it's a bracket, we need to close it just like that. Now here there is something okay, var document is expected. So basically we are just having an hello world, and then we are printing hello world. So here, sorry, here we need to have a comma. Okay, all right, so that comma takes out the problem that is there. Now there's something I want you to look at here. Okay, now we are making an hello world example. So what I want us to start is just from the basic. So what is React DOM? You can see here I'm importing React DOM from React DOM. Now within the React we have a DOM. A DOM is object that is the document object model, and within the JavaScript. Now I did a tutorial on JavaScript fundamentals, getting started with JavaScript, where I also dealt with DOM, so I'll not repeat most of the concepts. So if you want, you can just go and check that video. But what I want you to understand is that we have the React DOM. We're importing React DOM from the React DOM itself, and then now we are able to render this particular code here within the React DOM. Alright, so now here we have document.getElement by ID, which is the root. So what do we mean here? That means that this route is within the index. So here div ID root. So within our object, within our DOM, we are getting the route, and then within the route here it's going to present the particular code or whatever we are printing out. So now let's see this in an example. So now when you are running your React application, what you need to do is that you need to run npm start. Npm start. But what you need to have is that I realized I had already seeding into my demo app, but defaultly it doesn't come like this. So what you could have done, okay, let it run, and then I'll just show you what it's happening here. So sometimes it takes some minutes, or not some minutes but some seconds as it runs, but all is good. So you can see now the application is running well. So we have the hello world as our output. So now here basically you can see we ran, and then it is successful. As I've told you, you need to run the npm start, and then it will run on the local host 300, and then that is successful. So what have we done? We have just imported, we have just rendered, we have used the React DOM, and then run the document.getElement by ID root. Now what I want you to see is something here. So let me just go to inspect, and now okay, so as you inspect the Chrome developer tools, you can see here we have the div ID, and then we have the route. Why am I calling it route? Sorry, it should be root. So the root, and then you can see hello world. So here, this is what I was trying to show you. You can see where we have you need to enable JavaScript to run on this, which is what we have here as well. So you can see here, but this is what I want you to take note of. So what does this show you? That this shows you that that's what React does. So any React application runs after this particular route. So we have when we go back to our index.js, so we are having the DOM, and then we are rendering hello world, and then the document.get element by ID is going to get the root, which should be now this one, and then we render our application. So this is what you need to understand, right? Now the next concept here we are looking at is okay, let's look at JSX, which is a JavaScript syntax within React. So what is it? So let's just look at it. So JSX is a JavaScript, is a syntax extension to JavaScript. Basically what it does, it describes the UI, what the UI should look like. So what is there is that within React you can either use it or not, but it is highly recommended that you'll end up using it, because it really helps in writing your application or writing your code within React. Now let me give you an example so that you can get to understand what it is. Now for example, we have written an application that is an hello world application using just the normal HTML and so forth. So here I'm going to use JSX to do the same thing that we have just done in this. So what I'm going to do here within your index.js, I'm going to have const element. So sorry, this is a const element, and then within the const element I'm going to have the h1 tags just like that, and then I'm going to have the hello world. Sorry, this is hello world. Okay, so that is hello world. Let's just put an exclamation mark, and then here we have React DOM. So React dot render. Okay, so this is element. So basically this is just what we had written before. So and then we can have document dot get element by ID, and then we are still going to do the same thing. We are going to get the route, okay, within our application. So basically that is what is there. So now where is JSX? Now JSX is happening between where we have the h1 tags. So the h1 tags here are presenting JSX syntax. So we are using it just to render, that is to run this application. So I think it's all good. Okay, so we are going to have still the same output since it's still an hello world application. So basically this is JSX here, as you can see here. So we are using the h1 tags and then we are wrapping them. Now basically somebody would ask, what if we just wrote, for example, let me cut this one. Maybe somebody could have said, let's write maybe a variable like let's say let's say like that, right? You could have had something like that, right? Const element and then maybe element, because this is basically how we define variables within any application. But generally what we are doing here, we are presenting the h1 tags within our application just like this. So highly that's why it's unique within JavaScript, within React, and then we are using it. So what we may do is that let's check more examples for you to understand what JSX does in React and why you need to use it. So let's look at something else here. Okay, now you can also use JSX in this way. In other words, as we have said, React doesn't require JSX, but you can use it. It's very helpful when you are working with JavaScript code. Now basically what you need to understand with JSX is that it helps in writing JavaScript code within React, right? So it gives you a full power of JavaScript directly within your user interface. And a good example is what we have just described here. So you find that we are writing JavaScript code within our React using JSX. Alright, so let's do another example just to illustrate more on it. Now, for example, here, let me take this one out. So you can have, for example, const birthday. Let's define something like const birthday, and then here, let's say the birthday is 804.1982, and then we close like that. And then here we're going to have const, sorry, this should be const element, and then this one is equals to the h1 tag, like that. And then you can have something like let's say I was born in and then comma, sorry, this is I was born in, okay, I was born in, and then you have two brackets, and then here we can have the birthday example. Okay, we have the birthday, and then we are closing it with h1 tag, and then basically here you have something like that, since it's, yeah. And then here we are just calling the React DOM render, then so basically we are going to deal with this most of the time. Yeah, so render element and then document, yeah, HTML like that, and then let's just save this, and then it will just compile. So basically what you are doing here, we are defining a variable here with const. Remember, const keyword is used to define it is used for variables that do not change. For example, somebody's birthday, it's constant, like, okay, it does change, but it's a constant value that we expect. Maybe your birthday next year will be 1983, and maybe the date will have shifted to, okay, this will always be your birthday dates numbers, right? And then here we are saying const element, I was born in birthday. So what do you think will be the output? You can see here it is going to print the birthday, which is this one. So when you expect our application, you can see this is what is going to be happening. This is the output of your application. Now basically what I'm trying to illustrate here is that we are using JavaScript within our React using what we refer to as JSX syntax in JavaScript. So it's very helpful in a visual aid when working with UI inside the JavaScript code. Okay, so what else? So we can also have another example. So let's just continue. For example, we can have something like let me just take this one out. So here we can have something like, okay, you can use JSX to nest elements within one another. So for example, here you can have something like const greeting. Sorry, this unit text caps lock. So here we have const greeting equals to bracket here, and then here I'm going to have I'm going to have a div. I'm going to have a div like this, and then within the div I'm going to have children elements within the div. So here I'm trying to illustrate how you can nest elements within using JSX. In other words, JSX can allow us to nest element. Remember, here we are just trying to study, we are just trying to understand how we can use JSX in React with it, that is by using the JavaScript code. So here div. We have in div. Now div here will be the parent element, and then here within the div we can have for example hello, something like that, and then here we can also have a p tag like that, and in the p tag we can have something like welcome to React, something like that, and then we are closing it, and then we are just using the normal render. So now here, since we are not rendering element but we are rendering the greeting, so here we need to present greeting like that, and then the root, so forth. So now when it compile this one, we should have the output as okay, just okay, hello, welcome to React, just like that. So now here what we are using here, what we refer to as, we have said this is the parent, so this is going to be the parent. So let me just comment this one. Okay, it's not agreeing, so we can have it there. This is going to be the parent. I think we can't comment here, but just understand this, this is the parent. Sorry, it's not that one, but this one. This is the parent, and then now this is the this is the child, right? So this is the child. So this is what I'm trying to illustrate. We can have nested elements where we have the div presenting the parent and the hello and welcome React being the children elements. So now we can have many more examples of using JSX within React, but I'll not dwell much on them. So let's just continue. Now as we will be looking at other topics, you'll see us using JSX. So I'll be telling you here is JSX, and it's working there like that. So we are going to use it in most of our topics. So yeah, so let's just continue to the next topic. Now here you can have okay, now we are looking at components and props. So what are components and what are props? Now a component is all components let you split the UI into independent reusable pieces of codes. For example, you can use different pieces of codes and you reuse them many times, right? Now remember at the start of the tutorial I showed you something to do with React being a component based application. You can see here we are building we can build encapsulated components and manage their own, which can manage their own state. Now here what components does is that they let you create different components, and then you can be able to use those different components and create even a bigger application, just like you see Facebook and so forth. So basically I'm just going to show you basically what you can do, a simple example, and I've just started by giving out the function biodata. So we are going to have an application that just basically prints the person name, the age, the gender, and the date of birth. And now from these different particular props, you have different components within them. That is, you can update any of them individually without having to affect any other, right? So basically this is what I'm talking about. So here within our export within this part we are going to create export. It's this one is React based, React defined. You use it when you want to access an application data and so forth. So here export default app, and then here I'm going to return so we're going to have that, and then I'm going to have a div. There's a div here. Okay, so within the div here, now I'm going to call the function, which is now the biodata, right? You can see it's already defined, and then I'm going to call the first part of the props, which is the name. So I'm going to give the name as Brian, the first part, and then the person age, I'm going to give the person age would be, let's say my age is 28, right? And then the gender, right? So the gender will be male, so that's male, and then the date of birth. So some of them are already now defined since they are being accessed. So here we are going to have 18.07.1994, okay, and then we close this. So now here we have in this, now you can see now this is part of your component. This is one part of your component. In other words, if I run this application, we are going to print the first one, right? But I want to make 3 of them. So basically here, so let me just copy this one since we are still going to do the same thing. Where is it? Okay, this one. So let me just copy that one and paste it like that, and then paste it like that. So basically what I can do here is that I can change the name. Can they change this one to John, for example, and this one I can change it to Andrew. So this one will be Andrew, like that. So basically that is it. Let me just okay, let me change the okay, let me put this one 25. Maybe let me put this one 23, like that. So what am I trying to show you here? Now here we have created a function, we have passed props. Now props are the properties, and the properties you are passing through within here, within this particular function. Biodata is the name, age, gender, and date of birth, which is here. And basically the biodata presents the component. So here we are having one part of the component, another one, and another one. And then now from these components you can change, you can edit them individually. For example, here I can put John, I can put another name, I can do so forth. And this is the power of using components within React, and even any other framework such as Vue.js. It also supports components and props. So here let me before we run our application, so I'm going to render the app since it's what we are rendering here, like that. And then so here this one is going to be like this. I'm going to call it, and then let me, okay, so this is going to be that way, then our application, and then we are going to have a comma there. So now that is it. So what I'm doing is, because we have the export function, so we need to change it to this way. So basically that is it. So when I run this, it should be able to compile successfully, and then let's see. So within our React application, okay, so you can see here we have the first name. So the first details are these ones, and then we have the second details, and then we also have the that details. So basically what now this is just a component, another component, and another component, just like that. So basically you can edit individual components and do many things. So in Facebook, this is what happens. You find that there's an header component, there's a part of the status. For example, we have the where are they, this somewhere here. So we have the status where they are, and then we also have some other functionalities such as the navigation bar. We have the list, so we call them header list, for example. So basically that's how components work in a particular big application such as Facebook and so forth. So here I'm just trying to show you how components and what are they and how do they work. All right, so let's just continue. Now the other topic we are going to look at, or we are looking at, is the list and keys. So list and keys is the next topic. Now what are lists? Now when you look at my JavaScript fundamental tutorial that I did just sometimes back, I explained what are keys and what are lists. So basically you can, if you need to understand them in a JavaScript format, is good, so that you may get a better understanding of what I'm going to explain here. So what are lists? So lists are just items that you present within a particular data. For example, a data of particular items, just like the way we have arrays and then a particular ordered data. So, and then keys are keys is the way you use, for example, to track an element within the particular list. Now for example, here we have in function fruit, right? And then within the function fruit we have we have different types of fruits: mango, orange, pineapple, and so forth. Now when I use a key, for example, let's say I want to access, let's say we have mango, orange, pineapple, and then I want to access mango. Now I'll use a key, for example, and this key is able to track where is the mango located at, and then is able to print that particular mango, right? So that's how keys work. So React ILA supports list and keys, and they are needed in our programming applications. So here I just started with an example: function fruit, which we are passing the props, and then we are defining a const fruits with property of fruits, and then we are using, now I want you to take note of the map. Map is it is a JavaScript array concept that you are able to obtain a particular list of elements and then list them out, right? So if you also need to look at this one, you can go and check map arrays and how they work. So but you are using it to print the list of items, and then we have in this li, and then it's going to look at the fruit, and then it's going to print. So now so what are the lists? What are those lists? So here we are going to, what we are going to do here, I'm going to return the particular list of elements that I want to return. So here I'm having the UL like this, and then here I'm having the list items like that. So I'm calling the list items so that they can be presented. And let me close this one, and then I'm going to close that one like that, since we are having it from there. And then here now I'm going to present the const fruits. So here I'm going to have const fruits is equal to, this should be, the first one will be mango. So I'm just giving you now the list. We also have orange. So here should be like this, like that. And then we are having bananas, yes, like that. Sorry, this one should be just like that. So that's it. So that is the list of the elements that we're going to render. And then here I'm going to have, since we are, so we just put what we are rendering here, and here what I'm going to render, obviously you know it's fruits, right? So here I'm going to have something like this. So I'm going to have fruit, and then it's going to be fruits like this. So here we are having like this, and then yeah. So yes, like that. And then we are calling the document.get element by id. So now Now that is fruits like that, and then let me see, there's something here. Okay, okay, sorry, this should be okay. Since we are presenting fruit, we should have fruits defined just like that. Okay, so we are going to go, guys. So that is it. So what we are doing here is that we are just rendering the fruit and then the fruits with this, and then we are passing the keyword fruit because this is what we have defined here. So let's look at our application here. So you can see we have the list of fruits here. So that is just a basic example to show you how we can print a list of items with the React. Now we can update this code to have a particular functionality here. For example, we can update the code as follows using the keys. Now here we have just dealt with a list. So this is just a list of items, right? So where do keys come in? Because here there's no key. So now here within this map fruit below it, here this is the one that is presenting the li, and the li is what we are having the circle dots, right? So here we can change this code to something like this. So here I can have something like, so here I can have li key into brackets, and then here I'm having fruit dot, and then we are going to convert this to string. Now we are converting this to string because we are presenting the list of items in string format. So here, now I know maybe some of you may be asking this, but all of this stuff is dealt with in JavaScript fundamentals. So that is it. So we are just doing what we refer to as conversion, that is symbols. I dealt with some of these things. You can check my fundamental JavaScript course, and then here and then I just close it just like that, and then by then within now here I'm going to have the brackets, and then I'm going to put fruit, sorry, should be fruit like that. So and then I run it again by using the Control Z to save. So you can see now this is what I'm talking about. So we have the li, the key, and then within it we are converting this to string, and then we are presenting the fruit. So basically when I run this one, let's see, should have the same, should be having the same output, right? Okay, okay, orange, okay. Okay guys, so this should not be that one, should be fruit. Sorry, I think it got changed by, okay. So when we run it again, it should give us the same output. Now what you need to know is that now we are using a key to access what? To access these particular elements, and then we are printing them, right? Now you can also have something, we can also have it like this one as well. For example, here instead of having all this, we can also instead of converting them to string and all that, we can also have fruit dot id like that, and then this is this should be on brackets. So here we have in fruit dot id, and then let me close it like that, and then it is the li, and then sorry, this should, okay, this should be this should also have like this, and then now here we are going to have the same thing we had before, so like that. So when I save it, it should give me the particular. So here what I'm doing is that I'm presenting the li, and then the fruit.id with the fruit like this. So basically it's also going, now you realize that this is index 0, index 1, index 2, like that, right? So we can access any particular elements that is within the fruits. We can access these individual elements within the fruit like that, using what? Using the keys. So this is the power of using keys within React. Alright, so let's continue. State and lifecycle. So what is state and lifecycle? So we'll make a welcome component that greets and sets up its own timer and updates itself every second. Now here, so what is a state and what is a lifecycle? Now as we type this program, you're going to understand what is a state and what is a lifecycle. But just know that state is just the condition in which your application is or is at. For example, when you are rendering particular elements within your application. Now let's just start. Here I'm having a class that has welcome, and then it extends the React component. Now what it does is that it extends the class React component. So within React we can also have classes, and then for example the examples, the topics we have just looked at, they are functional based. Now this one is a class based. Now we are extending it from an ES6 class, and then from there we are using it to access React.component, particular libraries and so forth. So basically what we are doing here is that we are going to have a constructor. So here now let's get started with classes and constructor in React. And this constructor, we are going to give it props, right? So a constructor is a class that we are going to assign the initial. That is, a constructor is a class that is used to initialize objects, right? If you are deep with programming fundamentals. So super, we are going to pass props, and I'm going to explain as we continue. So here we are passing props. Whenever you're using classes in React, you need to have those two concepts defined, a constructor and a super. And then it goes with what we refer to as a state. So here we are going to use this keyword, and then we are going to say this state, this dot state, like that, and then we are going to have date, whereby we're going to have this new, should be that way, new, and then the new date, and then is already closed. So we are going to close it. So what does this function do? Now this one is going to add a local state to our class. So basically we are making an application that is a timer that is able to run and update itself at the same time. For example, look at a clock, a watch. That is a watch, not a clock but a watch. It has the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, and then they're able to update itself every hour after hour, right? So we are making an application that does just the same thing. So here we are going to have a component. So this is where lifecycle begins. So we are going to understand what is lifecycle here. So did amount, component did amount here, and then here we are going to, okay, let me open that one like that. So here we are going to set the timer whenever the welcome is rendered to the DOM for the first time. So here we are going to have something like this dot timer, and then we are going to have it as an ID which equals to set interval, and then here we are going to have something like that, the brackets, and then what we are doing here, we are referencing a particular class which we are just going to create it within a second. So here we are going to have a class that is called this.tick, like that, and then we are closing, and then we are just giving. Now this particular timer or this component, what it does, remember we have talked about components, so we are creating one component which sets the timer, and then it brings the that is it sets the timer for a particular clock. Now this tick, you can relate it with the way a clock ticks, right? And then we are giving it 1000 seconds, right? So here, let me just close this one and then end it with those particular columns there. Alright, so now that is it. So this one does that. So now the next one is so here we are going to have another component. So what will this component do? So here we have another component which we refer to as well amount, right? So what does this component do? Now this component, what it does is that it clears the timer whenever the DOM is produced by the welcome is removed. So this one is just basically what it is used to. It is used to clear the timer. So here we are going to have a function that clears the timer. So clear interval into this dot timer ID. So it's going to access the timer ID and clear it like that. So let's end it with the semicolon there. And then lastly, I'm going to make a function that is now the tick. Remember I showed you the tick, which refers to the tick of the clock. So here I'm going to make a method which is referred to as tick, like that. And then what it does here, we are going to assign it this dot set state. So we are setting our state here, and then basically what we are doing here, we are what it does here is a method that welcome component will run every second, right? So the welcome component will run every second. So the tick will just be just the tick of a clock, right? So we are initializing this dot state, which uses the state to schedule updates to the component. So here we are going to have something like this. So here we are just going to finish by, so we are going to set the date, that is the date, and then here we are going to have new date. So now a new date will be presented like that, and then okay, so and then with that one, and then we are good to go. So basically now this one, we have in a render here. So what is it doing? Now this render is going to have the hello, this hello, the name of the person, and then the time is this dot state dot date, and then it's going to bring the local time. So the local time within, for example, within your particular place, what is the local time? So that is what it does there. So all right, let me see here, let me just run this and save it, compile it. So there are some two errors we can see within our application. Okay, so let me see. So we are having module failed from unexpected. Okay, document or truth. So okay, so what we have in here, I think I think this should be that way. It's not so. I'm seeing something here. Okay, so I think we should be good to go. So now maybe I think the application might not the application, but yeah, the application might be long, but what you need to understand is these are components. Remember, we have talked about components. Then the next thing you need to understand is we are just creating a timer that is able to update. Now let's just look at it here. You can see hello Brian, and then the timer is this. So my time right now is 4:06, my local time, PM. So basically what it's doing here is just we are using a class welcome, and then we are setting the new date, and then we are using this date amount, that is component, to set the timer. Will amount, we are also using it to clear the timer. For example, it clears every second, it clears the timer when the right that is when it the right, that is after every hour or second the timer is cleared. So we are using the clear interval, and then we are using the tick, which is able to tick, that is just it is just ticking. You can just see one, that is after every second. And then basically what else, and then now we are rendering this hello, the name of the person which we are passing here within welcome Brian, and then document.get element by id, which is common. All right, so that is what is there. And yeah, so basically that is it. You can just copy the program and go and study it. So let's just continue. Something you need to understand is that component date amount and component will amount are referred to as lifecycle methods, because here we are setting the timer, here we are clearing the timer. So this we refer to as the lifecycle methods. And then we remember we have talked about the state, whereby it's just stating, putting our new date whenever the, for example, when the component will amount is called upon to clear the timer, then the new date is set like that, and so forth. All right, now let's look at the next topic, handling events. So what is handling events? Now in React you need to have these two concepts in mind. Now the first one is that React events are named using capital case rather than the lowercase. And then the second one you need to understand is that with JSX you can pass a function as the event handler rather than a string. So let's start with the first example. Now I've just copied some of the code place so that we can just save time. So this one is just returning a particular form which has the submit and then button submit and so forth. So this one is just, now where you can see here we have the undo submit, this is what we refer to as JSX here, as we are using the brackets and so forth. Remember I told you I'll show you where we are using JSX in our application. So here let's just start. So here we are having something like function. I'm going to make a function form like that, and then within this function form what it's going to do is that it's going to prevent the default behavior of submitting forms. Alright, so here we have not else but should be e.prevent, e standing for the event, right? So e.prevent default, and it's a method, so we're going to have it like that. And then here we are going to have console.log, and then is going to console something like you collect submit, like that. And then here we are going to close it that way. So basically that is what it is doing, and then now it is returning this and so forth. So we have in the function, sorry, this function should have brackets like that, and then here, so you clicked. So what is doing here, we are using the camel case, for example, function form, and then here there's something I forgot to write. Now here e.prevent default is preventing us from just defaultly submitting our form. So here we should be having another function that is going to handle our submit. So we are going to have a function here that handles our submit here with the parameter event. So it's also a function, so we are going to have it like that, and then we are going to copy all this and then just place them there, and this one should take it like that, so undo submit, and then like that. I think we need to have something different here, something not right. So the function form, so what I'm getting here is that React DOM is defined but never used. You can ignore it. For example, I can just comment it out, or I can just leave it, right? Because I'm not using React DOM to. So here we are just going to look at it in the console. So here, so when I go to inspect, because we are printing it on the console. Okay. So guys, what we have in here is that I forgot. So we still need to have the React DOM render, and then we are just passing the form, and then just the usual one, and then what else? And then these ones we have already done. So now when we come to our output here, you can see now when I go to, that is inspect, that is I right click inspect, and then I am taken to this one, then the console. Now when I click, it just shows you the number of clicks that you have done. So you clicked submit, right? So that is now just an intro on events. So remember, we use the e.prevent, e standing for event, .prevent default behavior of submitting your form, and then basically just to show you how to use events in React. Now let's look at another example. Now you may have another example like this. So you may have an example so here we are going to use a class. Remember, we have talked about class in the last example. So I'm going to have something like class event, and then it extends the React component. So it extends the React component, and then here within the class event, I'm going to have two particular methods. So the first one is click me, which is a method, and this one now, what it should do, it should alert me something like should have something like you clicked me, like that. Alright, and then the last one should be don't click me, like that. So now this one should be something like alert don't click me. So that is what that's the whole thing. So here, so we are going to have those two. Here we should have one. So like that. So there are two methods. The first one is this, and then now here I've just copied this one. So what it's doing is just rendering, and then it's telling you click button to see the effect, and then we are using button and then on click with this dot click me, and then we are just presenting it with this particular text. So I think it's easy to understand that way. So what it is doing, this dot click me is just calling this particular method here, and then the alert does its work. So here when we save, our render should render this one successfully. So here we should have something like okay, so the first one is that one, so we get the alert, you clicked me, and then this one should be don't click me. So this is just a simple example on events in React. Alright, so let's just continue. So what is conditional rendering? Conditional rendering in React, you can create distinct components that encapsulate a behavior you need. Then you can render only some of them depending on the state of your application. For example, you can have different components, and then you have presented them, and then from these different components you make one which is going to look at the two components and then render them based on a condition, right? Now when you talk about condition, we are talking about the if, the else, like that, for example, because they are the ones that are used for conditioning. So for example, I'm having an example like this function, user greeting, like this, and then I'm passing the props like that. So here I'm returning the h1 tag. Remember, this is JSX. Remember we talked about this. So this welcome. So this one is going to tell the user who is already logged in, welcome back, right? This is what happens in most applications. This is the logic. So here we have in that, so just like that. And then here we also have another function which has the guest greeting. So we're going to make another one which has guest greeting, and then we pass the props here that you're going to render, and then return, and then just have the normal return. Now this return should have h1 tag, just like the previous one. Now this one is going to tell the guest, because it's new, please sign up, right? Please sign up, just like that. Then you can have ending dot. So here now, since we have created these two, the first one is checking. If he's already logged in, then it just gets a welcome back. If he's a new guy, so you'll have to pass this condition. Now let's set the condition here. So we are going to have function greeting, and then we are going to pass the props like that. And then here we are going now to define a variable which says if the person is logged in, let's pass the props. Remember, we have already passed the props already, so is logged in. Then here we are going to use an if statement which is going to check is logged in. And then okay, so this is okay, this is like that. So return user greeting, like that. So we're going to return user greeting, that is if is logged in, then we are going to return user greeting, or else here we are going to have guest greeting. I think this is easy for you to understand. There's nothing hard here if you have dealt with most of these things. So here we are just creating a normal another function which is now going to check if the person is logged in, return this. If is not logged in, return this. Now for us, since okay, this is just a small application, so we don't have, for example a database or something that is able to check all this. So what we have in here, down here, we have in the React DOM render, whereby I've written here, try changing to is logged in true or false. For example, if I put true, it means that the person is okay, let's just check. Let me save this. So let it compile. Okay, so let's just check. Okay, so it's saying welcome back. So welcome back is for the first one. So the first one, so it's running the first part of the code. But now if I put false here, you can see what happens. So this is false. Okay, that's correct. So here you can see it's going to change. Did we save? Yes, we did. So it's going to tell you please sign up. So this is what we refer to as condition rendering, whereby you are able to render based on we are able to create different components and then you render them based on a condition. So this is a topic in React that deals with conditional rendering, right? Okay. So forms. So what are forms? So forms, in React we have different types of components that render different forms. Now for example, we have controlled components, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in this particular video. You can go and explore other components that render form in a different component method or way. So here I'm going to talk about controlled components. Now what are controlled components in terms of forms? You find that in a controlled component, a form data is handled by a React component. Now this one means that a React component can render a form based on what happens on the form, that is based on the user input. For example, the user that inputs this, and then the form is able to render based on the user input. So that is what we refer to as a controlled component. It's already controlled in terms of what the user should put in and how the React will manipulate that particular data. Now here what I've done, I've already copied some of the code. So here the first part of it is that I'm doing an event submission, whereby, remember, we have looked at this handled, submit, and so forth. So here this is just a basic form that is which you can create with any programming language like HTML, Bootstrap, that is any front-end language. And then what you are doing here is that I'm just using particular JSX and as well React component. For example, when you say this.state.email, it means that we are accessing the email part, that is the person should fill the name and the email, right? And then now we have the submission, the submit button. So as we go along, we are going to study more about forms. So this is just an introduction, should not worry you anyway. I'll do a more based detailed tutorial on how to work with forms in this particular way. So let's just look at this example. So, and then the rest of it, we have the main title, which is going to have the React form, and then here we are now going to use the render to render the title and the contact form. So the title is this one, and then the contact form we are going to make here. So basically what I'm going to have here is that I'm going to have a class, right? So a class which is the contact form, and then here I'm going to extend, sorry, this should be extends, and then it extends the React dot component like that. And then so here, as we said with the classes, we have to pass a constructor with the props. So that you are going to find this one mostly when you are dealing with the React, with the class based React application. So here we are going to pass the props like this, and then here we are going to have this dot state. Now this dot state, what it does here is that it is initializing the state object. In other words, what we are going to give here, for example, here I'm going to have name, because I want my form to have these two details. So here I'm having that, so it is, yeah. And then here I'm also having email, right? So this is what the state is doing. It's just initializing this particular object so that we can assign them the values. Remember, this is a key pair value, right? So this is like that. Then here, down here, I'm going to have a function that is going to handle the change in our form. So it is a method which is going to have this dot handle. This should be this dot handle input. This dot handle input change. So whenever there's a change, it's going to bind it. So it should be like that. So input change dot bind, and then we are going to pass this. Emptying there, like that. And then we're also going to have this dot handle, which is going to handle our submission of our form. So dot handle submit should be that one. Dot bind, and then this handle submit should be equal to this dot. So this dot. All right, now so we're having handle submit, and then we're having this dot handle like this, and then dot bind, and then this. Now you may be asking what are some of these, what they do, but what you need to know, you need to understand is that so here what we are doing, this one is just know that this one is handling the submit part of our form. Remember, we are looking at form, and what we are looking at is how to submit a form in a React, right? So we'll dive more into more examples, right? So let's just do this. So the other one is that what we are going to do here is that we are going to have handle input change. So remember, these are predefined functions within React. So this one is going to handle the event. So what is that event? So we are going to have const, and then we are going to use the target to say event dot target, and then here, and then this one is going to have const value, which is equals to target dot type, which is equals to that. And then here we are having a checkbox, which we are using what we refer to as conditional operator. And then within the checkbox we are checking if target dot should be target dot checked, not dot value. So here we are having target dot checked like that, and then target. Okay, let me just Okay, so we are having target dot value, and then we are just closing like that, and then here we'll have const name, which is equals to target. So do this, okay, target dot name, like that, and then we are just closing. So basically what they are doing, we are just handling the input change whenever there's a change within the input. So this particular event functions are going to handle this, and then here we are going to have this dot set state, which is going to have the, okay, it's going to have this two, is going to have the name, then the value, okay, so then the name, okay, so here we'll have that, then we have console dot log, which is having something like change detected dot state. So this one is going to look at what are the changes that have been detected, and then it's going to update. So here we having change detected, and my detected is somehow wrong, so here is going to look, it's going to check like that, so detected, okay, so I think we are good to go. Okay, dot state. Okay, now this state is going to be updated, right? So here we are going to have updated, and then here we are going to add the name, and then here this one needs to be within, yeah. So we are having the name, so we are adding the name, and then we also, okay, this is going to be that way, so this equals to this. So once we run the application, I will explain more so that you can understand what we are really doing, and then the value, and then we just close that. Now the next one is that we are going to console, we are going to undo the submit. Remember that one is undo the input change. Remember we have defined two undo changes. We have defined the undo change, this one, whereby we have talked about the handling the change, this bind, and then the submit. So here we are just defining what we are going to have in the undo input change, and then this, and then we have defined a state value, which is just taking the name and then the value, right? And then here we are just logging out, that is change detected, and then it updates. Now the next thing here we are doing is that this one, I think this one should be, since we are done with this one should be there. So the next thing we are doing, we are going to undo submit. So we are going to have undo submit event, and then we are going to have alert. Okay, form was submitted like that, and then okay, so this is going to have this dot state, dot name, sorry, dot name, dot name, and then here we are adding and then okay, you're going to understand this because this one is just logging out. It's just logging the name of the that is on the console, on the output. So you're going to understand it as we just log, and then this state dot email, like that, and then we just close with that, and then event dot prevent or prevent default right. So basically that is it. So let me correct some things so you can understand by, for example, this statement which says a form was submitted, and then this one should be 1, not 2. A form was submitted, and then we are getting the name from the input, from the user who puts the name, his or her name, and then the email, like that. And then we are using the event dot prevent, that is preventing that is just the form is submitting itself. Yeah, so that is what we are doing. And then here as we have said, here we are having 2. I don't know why this one is having this one should not be that way, it should be that way, and then yeah, and then this one should not. Yeah, so what we are doing here, we are just having these 2. Remember, we have defined these 2, and then we have defined what it should do, and then console, that is when a change is detected, then remember from this state, set state, it's going to give the value. So change is detected, and then the name, and then the value, right? It's given out, so it's going to be printed out. And then this one is undo submit. So the undo submit here, remember we defined it here, is going to change to submit what has been put by the user. And then here we are just having the render, and then the form where the user should now put his or her details, you can see. And then as well, now we have this one is just a class rendering the title, and then this one is now our render method. So let's just see this in action. I think everything went well. Alright, so now you can see this is our form, right? So the title is being rendered from where? It's being rendered from here, and then the rest of the other activities. So let's see if it works. So here I'm going to have Brian, and then I'm just going to have Brian at gmail.com, and let me try to submit. Alright, so it's submitting on the header here. I think there's something wrong with our form, so this should not submit in that way. So the issue must be here. So I think the problem should be somewhere here. So within the props, you just give a comma, and everything is good to go. So I think that's but anyway, any other part is good, so we did well. So I think that's where we might have gone at. But so now, okay, so I can just have Brian again. Okay, so I'm having Brian at gmail.com, and then I submit. Now you can see, so a form was submitted, and then the name, and then the Brian.com. So this is what is referred to as React form. So guys, you can copy the code. Maybe if you need it, you can just comment below, and then I'll submit it to you. But basically, this is how we handle forms using controlled components within React. Remember, I've used controlled components. Let's look at the next topic. Alright guys, so now the last topic we are going to look at is composition versus inheritance. So what is composition? A composition and inheritance are approaches to use multiple components together in React.js. What do I mean? This one helps in code reuse. Now, composition and inheritance are somehow same. In other words, we are inheriting particular class attributes. For example, a child inheriting particular attributes from the parent. So that is what we refer to as an inheritance. Now you realize in React, mostly we deal with composition. In other words, they highly recommend us to use composition as compared to inheritance. That is when you read in one of their statements there in their documentation. Now, so what is composition? If that's what you're going to deal with. Now, composition is similar. I've just explained. So we are reusing code. So for example, here, just to save time, I've just copied some of the part of the code. So what we are doing here, we have in a function React.js. Now this function, what it does is that I've commented it's a function React.js that prints a text and uses a bell shell component. Sorry. So it uses a bell shell component. It uses a base shell component. So I'm going to make this one just now, and then it is inheriting all the particular. Okay, it is taking the bell shell component, and then, in other words, what we have done here, we have placed. We are going to create a function that has bell shell, and this base shell, we are going to put it inside React.js, and then we are going to print out this particular values and properties you can see here. Okay, let me just do it so that you can understand better. So here we are having a function, and this function I'm going to name it base shell, and then I'm going to pass the props. Okay, and then here what I'm going to have here is that I'm going to have a return statement, and then just with the normal like that, and then within the return statement here, inside it, I'm going to have a div, and then a div class name. Okay, so here I should be having a bracket, and then this one I'm just going to call it, for example, a fancy border. So you're going to see what I mean by that. And then we are having a fancy border, and then here we are having, okay, so we are having fancy border as well. So remember, this is just a class we are defining, and then like that, and then we are going to tag it along with props. Props.color. So in other words, this is a border, and then within that border we are going to place particular elements within it. So that's what is happening here. So here, let me close it and have it that way, and then since it's within the div, and then here I'm going to have something like props. Going to have props dot children, like that. Okay guys, so now so what we have in here is that I've created a base shell. Now take this one, for example, it's a bucket, and then the bucket you're going to put water inside. So this is what is happening here. We have a base shell, and then within that base shell, using the React class name, we have defined the fancy border, which is just a React class, and then within that fancy border I've tagged it along with props.color and then props.children. Now props.color and props.children are dynamic content that is going to be passed outside this component. In other words, here we are going to pass base shell, and then we are going to pass the base shell which already has the dynamic content, which is props color and props children. So this one, what is doing is just inheriting what the base shell has offered it. For example, now when we put base shell color blue, now you need to know that I've already I've put some of this code. In other words, I'm also using CSS to make that fancy border, which I'm giving it this padding, border, blue, border color, then dialog title like that, dialog message, and so forth. Remember that is a class which is being passed here, right? So props.color and children are dynamic content, we have said, and then we are passing the color which is blue. So within our index we have the fancy border with blue color, and then with the border color which is now blue, right? So it's blue, and then the title, and then we are also making the title font size to be large, so dialog message. So here you can see dialog message, which now is going to be rendered as with a large title, and then dialog title here we have in dialog title here with the margin of 0, font family of sans serif, like that. So we are passing this class name attributes like this, and then the base shell is now the one that is passing this content in dynamic form, that is the props color and the props children. So what you need to know is that the base shell is just a shell for this other function to inherit all this. So let's see if it's working. So let's see. Okay, so let's see. So okay, so now you can see, so the messages I love React.js, and then React.js is a popular front-end framework. So basically that is it. So here we're rendering the DOM, that is the component, and then we are printing it out. So basically that is it, guys. So basically what React guys developers recommend, that you use composition versus inheritance, right? So this is what we are, this is what composition is in React. So guys, thank you for watching this particular video. Like, subscribe, and share this particular tutorial to your friends. And yeah, so you encourage me mostly when you subscribe to this channel and also like this particular channel. So guys, I will meet in the next tutorial.